Madre John Madden, Juanito in Acamal, Mexico. I made that last video about there's always something you can do in response to having come out my front door here in the little pueblo of Acamal. And during the night, dogs had gotten into my garbage and it was a mess. And I got up a couple hours ago and looked at it and said, I'm too groggy. I'm not going to do that now. I'll do it later. But now at 12:30, I kept going back to sleep, which I needed, obviously. And this time around, I looked at it and said, no, it's offending me. I don't want to sit down here in my doorway and meditate, go back to God, be peaceful with that shit sitting there. And that's related to my principle of free feng shui. Free feng shui. No rules. It's just the rule of your consciousness. What is it you need in your environment to support you feeling the way you want to feel? And the way I came up with that was what I called my second spiritual initiation, which happened about 4 or 5 months after my first huge spiritual initiation that changed my whole life. I had, for some reason I didn't understand, in my little subsidized apartment back in Asheville, North Carolina, been obsessively picking up mess, tidying this, getting rid of that pile. I always had been a little messy, but mostly neat. But something happened in me where I just had to get the environment just right. And at the end of 48 hours of that, I sat down in my favorite chair and boom, had my second initiation, which was 20 or 30 minutes of just raw sexual energy. I had seen an old friend that morning who I always had the hots for, but she also was my counselor. And it always had felt inappropriate or just not right to let myself lust after her. And there was just 20 minutes of wild imagery of sex between her and I. And I think my body was rocking and rolling like it is now, which it does from Kundalini energy, and that's part of the story. 20 minutes of that, never sexually touching myself, nothing, just energy, and wild fantasies. Then it shifted, and the fantasies went away, and it wasn't exactly sexual energy anymore, but it was really similar to it, and I was rocking and rolling like this. And I've always said that my first big experience of Kundalini happened through my homeless friend Sam, who rode in the van with me for 10 days and just was a hopeless flirt, and she kept me hot all the time, and she was way too vulnerable for me to try to do anything. And then boom, all this sexual Kundalini energy started pouring out, and it has ever since. But actually, this was the first time. December 11th of 2019. And then, after about 20 or 30 minutes, I can't remember, of that, what came was direct instructions from God about maybe 7 different areas of my life. Here's what you need to do about this. Here's what you need to do about that. So that was my second initiation. I'm determining whether to do a second tape. I'm not going to. I'm going to do this all in one tape. This bridges into what is my definition of responsibility. My definition of responsibility is you saw it, now you own it. What are you going to do about it? And that has to do with whether you go down off the mountain to do something for those kids who are thrown off their motorcycle, or whether, I told the story earlier of your cellmate in Orizaba has been savagely beaten, and what are you going to do about that? And I did, even though it was scary to take on the police department in Mexico, where I barely spoke the language, where the prevailing notion is you should get thrown in a Mexican jail, you're going to stay there the rest of your life, you're just going to rot there. Not the way it played out at all. Or in New Orleans, which white middle class people like to call dirty, really they mean it's filled with black people, it's like 60%, 80%, I think, black. But I encountered so many people there, white and black, who when they went for their walk for the day, they'd always bring a garbage bag along. And whatever they saw that offended them, this plastic bottle, this little mess, this empty potato chip wrapper, picked it up, picked it up. Somewhere in Appalachia, I always picked up stuff around the convenience stores. The convenience store staff in Appalachia never had time to patrol their grounds, and so I would do some of it for them if I liked the store. One day I just went bonkers on this one section of grass around the mountain convenience store. Spent half an hour or 40 minutes getting it apple pie, and I decided it's the new state park because it was so nice to look at. Yeah, you saw it, you own it. What are you going to do about it? There's no rules, no what would a nice person do or what does it mean to be middle class or any of that shit. It's just your own consciousness tells you this is something I'm supposed to take action on. Being responsible in this moment means shutting up, ending the video. That's what I'm going to do.